All right. Hey, everyone. Hello, and welcome to Higher Way Live. I am Coach Tonya Wells, here to inspire you to choose a higher way. I love growing each and every day, and I'm sharing things with you here that will inspire you to think a little better, a little higher, maybe in some ways you hadn't thought about before, and feel better and behave better, act better, or higher. Hey, listen, thank you for joining me here today. Today, our topic is on receiving good. On receiving good. In my area of the country, we are in a winter season, and so our themes for January and February are going to be tailored around winter themes, metaphorically. And one of the things that's happening right here in our area is the ground is getting soaked with moisture. It's getting soaked with either rain or snow and then melting snow. And so the ground is taking in so much goodness that it is going to be able to use as it's preparing for spring. So, as we think about this topic today in receiving good, I want us to think about what good do we need to begin to allow into our lives, even more so than we have already. So, before I jump in, let's take a look at our objectives today. All right, today we are going to define what is receiving. What does it mean to receive? And we're also going to look at the opposite. I find it very helpful to know what something is, to even be able to identify what it is not, and what the opposite of receiving is. We're going to talk about that today. Another thing we're going to do is we are going to review this week's question. What do you mean, Tonya? Well, every week I'm going to pose a question to those that are out here on Facebook right now, and I'm asking for your feedback. So I posed a question about what areas do you find it most difficult to receive? And I gave you 4 areas, so you don't even have to overthink it. You just look at the question, choose an answer, leave it in the comments below, and then I can include how you guys respond to our next Higher Way Live. So today I have we had a majority with one of the letters, and we'll talk about that today, or one of the answers. Another thing that we're going to review and go over is a quote. I like giving a quote for the week, something to ponder, something to think about. Guys, we don't need more information. We've got plenty of information at any given time, 24/7. We can gather more and more and more information, and even some of it is, it's good, but unless our heart really chews on it and begins to implement it in our lives, it's just like loading a computer, and it's going to get bogged down. So once a week, I'm going to provide a quote. And of course, anytime that you want to comment or you have a thought about that as you see the post throughout the week, as it relates to the quote, please do. And I'll include that in the show. Let's see, what else are we going to do? Okay, this is new. Last week I summarized, but we're going to summarize what we covered today, and then I'm going to assign some life work. What do you mean, Tonya? Well, I'm going to call you to action. If you are interested enough to where you watched this call or you watched this video, then there are some things that you can take to implement this even more in your life. So we'll have that at the end. And then I'll share with you briefly ways you can stay connected with me as we grow these videos with Higher Way Live and with Coach Tonya Wells. All right, guys, let's get started. Receive. What does it mean to receive? Well, I went to dictionary.com on my phone, and this was the first definition and the one that seemed most appropriate with what we're talking about today. To receive is to take into one's possession. To receive is to take into one's possession. Now, we have received a lot of things along the way, right? We have taken into our possession good things, good thoughts, We have taken in hurtful things, hurtful thoughts. We have taken in lies. We have taken in truth. We've taken in all kinds of stuff. And a lot of times, what we'll do is we'll guard ourselves because the pain or the hurtful and the not so good things did not create good feelings, and maybe we didn't even know what to do with them at the time. And so now we have this guard or somewhat of resistance to allowing good in efforts to keep bad out. Does that make sense? I'm purposely pausing there for a moment. In our efforts to keep bad out or hurtful out or lies out, we equally, if we're not aware, we will equally not allow good to come in as well, because we've just created a wall or a barrier that blocks it all. So let's look at the opposite. What would be the opposite of receiving? The opposite of receiving is to resist. This has been a big word for me over the last year. I've just really pondered this. Can't remember what gospel it's in, but one of the things that, it's a very life principle that Jesus taught was to resist not evil, or resist not those things that are not life-giving. Don't resist them. What in the world, and where am I going with this? Well, the word resist I just began to ponder it more and more and more. And I thought, how many times, Tonya, in failing to go with, if I'm always in that state of resistance, then I don't know what good is awaiting for me to even be received in the moment. Now I'm pausing because I want to see where I want to go with this right now. When we resist, whatever we're resisting, we're still focusing on what it is that we don't want, or we're still focusing on that fear or that painful moment. And we think we're resisting it, but what we're doing is we're really keeping it present, and we're not allowing good to come in. So what are some subtle ways that resistance shows up in our life? I wrote down a few, but you might even think of more. One is defensiveness. We get defensive. Somebody says something, and we find it hard to receive what they said, so we get defensive, and we self-protect in that way. Sometimes we deflect. I've been around folks that someone will say something, and maybe it's just a matter of fact, or maybe it's something good, or maybe it's something that is truthful, but they're just not ready to hear, so they deflect. Now, I understand why. I understand that we're afraid. I understand that we don't want to see, but one of the points that I want to get at here is that when we do that, we're also not allowing the good in that could be there, ready for us as a seed for growth. Another thing we do to resist allowing good in, and again, we're probably not doing this knowingly at all, but it's avoid. I was thinking today as I was preparing for the show, because I know I've been here, I think a lot of people can relate to this. Somewhere you saw a headline about some kind of health and wellness topic or truth that you know is next in your life for you to feel better, but you see it and you're like, I'm not ready to go there yet. I'm going to avoid that. Or we avoid reading the labels on packages because we really don't want to see what's in them. But yet, would it not be good for us to see that so that we can make a healthier choice? So sometimes resistance comes through just something very subtle, like avoiding, ignoring. You ever have, sometimes you just ignore somebody or you just ignore a situation. I guess that could be very similar to avoiding. An unwillingness, just an outright unwillingness to allow good in. Sometimes people don't know what to do with it when you're kind to them. Or maybe someone's being kind to you and you just don't know what to do with it. And so there's this avoidance or deflectiveness or even an unwillingness to receive it. What do you mean by that? Well, you come up with some reason, or you make an assumption that their motive is impure. And do we always know that that's the truth? So just some things I want us to ponder on. Oh, here's one more. One that I could relate to a lot, and that's overanalyzing. Overanalyzing a situation, overanalyzing a task, overanalyzing, and just not allowing the goodness and the life and whatever piece of information that would be helpful, or just a change in my heart or attitude toward moving towards something. Receiving. We talked about in our question today, or our question this week, we talked about 4 things, or at least I asked. I said, what 4 things do you find it most difficult to receive? A, forgiveness. B, constructive criticism. C, support. And D, kindness. What do you think the number 1 answer was? B, you're right. B, constructive criticism. That was the highest response that we had. We had a few C's, but primarily B. So we're going to talk about that one last. Let's just hit a few moments on each of these. So A, forgiveness. Why do we find it, or rather, why do you find it difficult to receive forgiveness? Or do you? Forgiveness, sometimes that forgiveness is difficult to receive, especially from ourselves. Do you ever forgive yourself? Are you hard on yourself when you feel like you don't measure up, or you make a mistake? Or do you find it difficult to receive forgiveness? Do you find it difficult? And I know this is giving, and I know we're talking about receiving here, but I'm going to hold my thought, because we're going to talk about this as we reveal the quote. So let me just hold that. So forgiveness. Forgiveness is good, because forgiveness is releasing. If you are one who is not quick to forgive yourself, guys, it's going to be a very painful, a very internally painful life. You know, it binds you, and receiving forgiveness is good. I know one of the biggest changes in my life over the last 50 some years, 55, I'm here, and I can't even remember when it actually happened. But one of the things that Jesus not only lived, I mean, he taught it, right? He said to forgive, and that we're forgiven as we forgive. There's this holistic release when we forgive others, but that we also receive forgiveness. And one of the first steps that ever really allowed me to forgive others with my whole heart was to first receive forgiveness for everything in my life. And I did that through Christ. And in receiving, when you have the capacity, when you open yourself to goodness and you receive cleansing and freedom in that way, then it makes it so much easier to forgive others, because you're forgiving as you were forgiven. So forgiveness is allowing good to come in. Let's jump down to C, support. A few of you guys said support was a tough one for you. So someone wants to help you, and you have that I can do it myself kind of attitude. And there we could be entering a lot of different beliefs, right? That I need to do it myself, or it won't get done correctly unless I do it myself. Or maybe it's a sense of independence. Maybe it's a sense of strength to you. So a belief might be that it's weak for me to receive support from somebody else. So that is a tough one for me. But yet, in that, we fail to allow goodness to come in the way of we're equally on the backside, complaining about how tired we are or how exhausted we are or how hard it's been. And we don't know what good is waiting to bring support. So people will ask. People will see. Sometimes you fumbling or moving around and having a tough time with something. Will you allow them to support you? Will you allow them to help you? It's not a sign of weakness. It really is not. It's a sign of strength, especially if you are gravitating from that extreme independence. It definitely is a way of growth when we allow support. D, kindness. Now, kindness to me is very different than being nice to somebody. Somebody can be nice to you, but their heart is not totally in it. Kindness to me is much, much deeper. The Bible even calls it a fruit of the Spirit. It's part of the very nature and the life of God. The thoughts, the heart, the actions, everything points toward one thing, and that is being kind. I used to sometimes prompt the Facebook on my Facebook wall or the folks that would see that, be kind to someone who doesn't deserve it. Can you find a way to be kind? And you're not measuring it. Well, they don't deserve me letting them in, or they don't deserve this or that because you're making an outward judgment based upon that. But what if you were just kind? Well, what when people are trying to be kind to you? Can you receive it? Sometimes people don't know how to receive it. And so a defense or a way to deflect it is with sarcasm or a joke. Pay attention and notice how you respond when someone is trying to be kind to you. And then our last one, constructive criticism. This was the one that stood out the most to most of you. That didn't sound right, did it? This was the one that a majority of you guys said, this was the toughest one for you to receive. Why would it be difficult to receive constructive criticism? Now, I put that in there, not just any criticism, but constructive. This is a life-giving feedback. This is feedback. This is something that's constructive. This is for your growth. Why would something like that be so difficult? Why do we have a hard time receiving that? One of the main reasons that we do is because we have taken what we have deemed as a mistake and we're identifying with it. We're somehow tying that into our worth and value, like that it's all one with us. If I did not do good and my supervisor calls me down at my work today and I have a difficult time hearing what he or she is saying that would help me to grow and be a better employee, I can't hear that if I'm not able to receive that because I'm so internalizing that I'm a bad person because of this feedback. And that's where I want to share with you our resource this week. And let me pull that up for you. There's a tool that I was thinking about right here. Actually, it's a training that I had facilitated. It's recorded, it's pre-recorded, and it's called Losing the Weight of Shame. Losing the Weight of Shame. Let me show you where you can find that. And as we hit on forgiveness, that one was another one too that's in here. So let's take a look at this. There's a series right here called Emotional Weight Loss, and it hits on letting go of the weight of shame, of unforgiveness, and anger. So all three trainings are right here. But let me go down to the one that I'm showing you today, and this is Losing the Weight of Shame. Shame. That's huge. And this is, I believe, at the very core as to why we have such a difficult time in receiving criticism, constructive criticism. Well, when you get free from shame, then whether it's constructive or they're just being ugly, it really helps you to be free from that. And where I'm at right now, guys, is Higher Way Training Center, and I will provide the link for you in that. So let me X out of here. But that's a good resource if you are one who is really struggling with, let me go back here just a second. If you are one that's really struggling with being able to receive constructive criticism, or criticism just in general is a real pain point for you, I encourage you to check out the shame coaching session with me. It's pre-recorded. You can also listen, but there's worksheets and everything there involved too. higherwaytrainingcenter.com. Okay, let's go to our quote today. The quote I chose was a quote by Brene Brown. Let's read. It says, "Until we can receive with an open heart, we're never really giving with an open heart." I'm going to read it again. Until we can receive with an open heart, and remember, we're talking about receiving goodness, we're never really giving with an open heart. And, you know, I haven't talked with Brene about this quote, but as I look at this quote, I would imagine it would be a matter of degree, right? The more closed we are with receiving, the smaller the hole or the venue that we're going to have to give. Now, we might be a very giving person. I've been a very giving person a lot of my life, most of my life. But many, many years of that giving was out of fear. And I was not receiving anything from anyone, and especially not God and His strength and His grace and His wisdom to live life through a freer way. So I was giving, but I was giving with a closed heart, and I didn't even know it. I would have thought, but people around me thought, "Oh my goodness, you're giving with such an open heart." But what they did not know was that I did not know how to receive goodness for myself, because I thought it was better to put you first, and I didn't even consider me. And that's a whole other topic in and of itself. But until we can receive with an open heart, receive good with an open heart, then we have more to give. And that's what I see this quote saying to us today. All right, so we are coming into the home stretch. Let's quickly summarize real quick what we've covered today. We covered the definition. Let me go back there just a second. We've covered the definition of receive. To receive is to take into one's possession. And the opposite of receive is resist. What are we resisting in life? What kind of good are we resisting? We hit on the question of the week, and the number one answer was B, constructive criticism. And I showed you, I'm not going to share my screen again, but I'll show you right here. This would be the training if you're interested at higherwaytrainingcenter.com. This would be the one you would be looking for losing the weight of shame. And then again, like I said, it's part of a series if you want to check out the series. And then our quote today by Brene Brown: until we can receive with an open heart, we're never really giving with an open heart. We may not want there to be an ulterior, well, I want to get it. You know what I'm trying to say? Ulterior motive, is that right? We may not want there to be any form of manipulation with our giving, but guys, until we really learn how to receive good, receive forgiveness, receive kindness, receive words and thoughts that will help us grow as a person, receive mercy, receive unconditional love. And when we begin to receive this from others, from God first, definitely first and foremost from others, and especially ourselves, we will begin to grow. And so when we are receiving better, we're going to be better givers. And that's what I see here in the quote by Brene Brown. So what kind of work, what kind of life work, Tonya, are you calling me to? When we take today's session, what are we going to do? So here's your call to action. And yes, I'm pointing my finger at you because now it's time for you to go to work. And you can see I have a smile on my face. So the first thing we're going to do, and this is not just to you guys, this is to me too, is become aware when we are resisting the moment. In the moment, what are we resisting? Because when we feel that internal resistance, we either hear it in our speech, or we can kind of feel the tightness in our chest, or in our thoughts, we begin to get judgmental and critical. We begin to complain. All of that is resistance. And if you can identify when you are resisting in the moment, that's the first step. So we begin to let go because there's good. There's something good there that we will fail to see if we don't stop and let go of the resistance. Okay, so number 2, what good? So you can ask yourself this, either in your question or just in your thought. Ask yourself, what good in the moment, in that moment, am I resisting, or what good is there? I remember when my first husband and I separated, and we have one daughter between us, and at that time our daughter was 6 years old, and we were talking about custody and just time together. And as a new mother and the only child that I had so much resistance to shared custody, not because there was anything wrong with him at all. I was just afraid, and I wanted full custody, and she could visit her dad, but I wanted that. And in resisting the shared custody, at the moment, I failed to see the good that I later learned came out of a shared custody, but I couldn't see it at the moment. Out of the shared custody came quality time with my daughter. It also allowed me time to begin to grow and learn more about business and things like that I could see hindsight. But what I'm inviting you to do today is to see if we can pause the resistance long enough and see if we are able to see what good might be present already right there at the moment. And like me, I believe you'll begin to see, even hindsight, what good there is in situations that maybe we didn't see before. Number 3, let's see, what do I have? What fearful, conflicting belief is rising up? What fearful, conflicting belief? So you're going to have beliefs that are going to rise up when you start letting go of resistance and you start allowing more good in. Let's go back to the example of support. You find it hard and difficult. Someone says, "Oh, let me help you with that." And after hearing this, you're thinking, okay, I'm going to see about, I'm resisting. I'm saying to them no automatically. So let me pause for a minute. And you're going to have beliefs that are going to like rise up and say all the reasons why you should keep your no and no. I can do it myself. Because again, going back to, maybe the belief is you feel like this is something you just need to do on your own and you don't need anybody's help because it's a sense of independence? Is it because you feel like you would be weak saying that you needed help, or that you could benefit from help with this? What might it be? But that's the time when you go to start changing and moving into something new. Your old beliefs are going to rise up and give you a few thoughts to entertain. So be aware of that. So you can acknowledge it. So what do? I hear these beliefs and I'm really ready, Tonya, to make a change. Acknowledge them. Acknowledge it meaning you just brought it into that awareness. You let it go and you allow good to come in. Let the person support you. Let the person help you. I'm going back to that example right there. And the more you do, the more you will allow change and growth to happen. All right, so today we have talked about receiving good. Receiving good. It's here. I believe there's so much goodness around us, but we fail to see it because we are so blinded by our pain, by our fears, by our negativity, by our complaining. Guys, all of those things are draining. They're draining and they're blinding and they're paralyzing and they keep your life small. If you are one who believes in God, who believes in Christ, and life, life of its fullness, believing that God's omnipotence of his omniscience, like that everything he is here. It's letting go so that we can begin to see it, begin to receive it, and then you'll have more to give back to others. All right, let me see here. How can you stay connected with what's happening in my world? Let me show you a few things. I created a little graphic here for you. Facebook page. If you have not already, go to, and you want to stay connected with what I'll be offering as far as videos and trainings and things like that, more from my professional side. It is Coach Tonya Wells on Facebook. I have my own page. Like, follow, and you'll be kept up to date on that. Also, did you know we have a YouTube channel? So we started a YouTube channel, Coach Tonya Wells, same handle. You can find that there on YouTube. You'll find short videos, everything from like around 5 minutes to half-hour trainings, just a variety of things. And I will keep loading videos to that channel each and every week. That's my intention and goal there. So guys, I tell you what, I really appreciate your time. Thank you for listening. Hopefully this was helpful to you. If it was, leave a comment below. Let me know what your takeaway was, and I will catch you next week. Until next time.